Segment one. Let's talk about draft strategy and prep. Okay, let's help our listeners understand a great way to prepare or a strategy that you like or dislike. Let's help our listeners out. Give some insights. Share some experience on things that we've seen, that we've noticed, that we've used to help us, or things we've seen that aren't as helpful. Shed, why don't you start us out, man?
Yeah, so some of my draft strategy, there's really three things. Training camp news, what's going on in training camp. Production from last year compared to this year, that's the age, team, what's around them. And then ultimately upside and opportunities. When you think about training camp news, you're talking about who's rising, who's falling, who the coaches are in love with, right? Where is their confidence in these players? Then you're talking about production from the previous year. Look at like a Derrick Henry, who didn't produce great last year, but he's in a better situation, better team with pieces around him. Saquon didn't produce last year, but he's in a better situation, better line, better players around him, which you should see upside production with that. And then also, we're talking about upside and opportunities. You're talking like a Malik Neighbors who has the opportunity, a CeeDee Lamb whenever he comes back, right? He'll be the clear number one wide receiver. Buffalo, there's massive opportunity there, right? Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman, both of those guys bring massive upsides and opportunity. And then you look at like a Bijan, there's upside there. Garrett Wilson with Aaron Rodgers back, right? And on the opposite side, a decline in opportunities. Look at Devin Achane, hurt. He only averaged about
Right.
13 or 14 points. From the time he came back last year, he averaged about 13 or 14 fantasy points after the big start, right? Over his last 7 or 8 weeks. So when you talk about upside, production from last year, also training camp news, those are things that really help me focus on how to draft for this upcoming draft.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I agree with that. I want to go, towards that angle as well. I call it. You want to look for context clues. A lot of times we get enamored with big names or lesser names, and we think, oh, big names. Let's put a higher ADP, but we don't quite look at the context. So, for example, Josh Jacobs didn't do well last year, so all of a sudden his ADP is quite low, lower than he should be. But we got to look at the context. The context is last year Josh Jacob didn't have a training camp at all. He held out up until the season started. They had a bad O line, no quarterbacks. I mean, not a good quarterback. So obviously, his production will be lower if you add in all those factors. But now, if you look at him now in an offense that prioritizes running the ball with Lafleur, he loves to run the ball. We saw what Aaron Jones did in that offense. The quarterback is a threat to run and throw the ball, and you have plethora of receivers on that offense. So that tells you, okay, he's gonna have a big season. So a lot of times we shouldn't just drop and say, oh, he didn't do well last year and that's it. You gotta look at context. Puka is the same thing last year. Puka had the opportunity. Puka, sorry. Cooper Cup was hurt. There was no receiver stepping up. He stepped up. He has the skill. And you have a quarterback that can throw the ball. That tells you most likely he's going to have a big year. So this year, same with Neighbors, same with what's it called? With Marvin Harrison Jr. They have opportunities to have big years. And or even someone, let me think of somebody that no one is thinking about. Like Shed said, oh, like Tampa Bay, Burke Ivan is probably going to have a big year.
Bucky Irvin.
Burke Irving, right? He's going to have a big year because Ricard White had a great year last year because there was no competition in the backfield. It was just him, and he had a lot of passes. His fantasy points did not come from running the ball. It came mostly from passing. Now you have Burke Irving who could run the ball and catch the ball, if not better than Ricard White. So he will have a good year, big year. So all these context clues are what I put together. I don't just go by the name. I look for, okay, who's the coach? For example, Tennessee. The coach of Tennessee is the offensive coordinator for the Bengals last year, which means the receivers will probably have a big year. Most likely, Calvin Ridley will probably have a year like Jamar Chase does. And that's what I look for, the context.
Yeah.
Sheesh. That's really good, Olu. Like I mean, dude, there's a great point about Jacobs, right, holding out in training camp,
Mm-hmm.
and then and then because of that, his value has dropped, which he would be a great pickup this
Yeah.
year. So Josh Jacobs would be a great pickup for those of you guys who are looking to pick up a
So
mid to late running back.
he's a good recent example of if you hold out for too long, it's almost like a lost season, right? Because you're just not ready. So that's even more recent than Le'Veon. It wasn't as drastic of a drop off,
No,
but
no,
still.
no.
I think I'm up. I was going to say, I'm going to give you a strategy for once you're actually in your draft. The clock has started and it's pick 101, and now here it is. It's time. You've done all the prep, but what you cannot control is what your league mates are going to do. The people drafting right before and right after you, because you have to be ready to adapt. You might have your draft board, the players you're targeting, they may not be there when it comes to your turn. So I'm going to give you this strategy for a redraft league and specifically PPR. Depending on where you're picking in the first round, what you want to do is you either go hero running back, which means you're trying to get one of the top 4 guys in round 1, which this year would be Breece, Bijan, McCaffrey, and Jonathan Taylor is kind of the consensus top 4 for this year redraft. If you can't get one of those guys, then my advice is shift and just stack wide receivers in rounds 1, 2, 3. Because if you're not going to get one of those top 4 running backs, after that, the average points per week is not going to be a massive swing, right? So if you can't get a top 4 running back, stack your receivers, get your quarterback in round 4, because you can still get a Mahomes, you can get a Lamar Jackson in round 4, and then in round 5 and 6, get your 2 running backs. And at that point, you're looking for high volume guys who are drafted as running back 2s or 3s, but who have running back 1 upside. A guy like this year could be Zamir White, Devin Singletary, guys who are like not sexy names, not well-known names, but they are the only ones in those backfields that are going to be getting all those touches. So based on volume alone, you're going to get production. And it's better to be elite at one position than to kind of get middle of the road at each position. And now you're in round 7, 8, and 9 trying to fill in your wide receivers. So if you don't go hero running back, it's not quite 0 RB, but you're just going to try and get some running back 2s with good volume, like guaranteed volume. And that's my advice for once you're live in your draft.
No, I definitely ascribe to if everyone zigs, you should zag. Like, don't overdraft a guy because you're fearful of the run. If everyone's doing a run on receivers, don't overdraft a receiver and then miss out on an awesome running back, right? Or the other way around. Everyone's drafting running backs and you're thinking, oh, I don't want to get stuck with James Conner as my RB1, and then you overdraft somebody. It's like, no. If everyone zigs, you zag. Like, get the value, man, you know? And there's some great running backs who are now considered like, I don't want to say mid-range, but 3rd, 4th round. Like a guy like Alvin Kamara. Like, that's one of my guys, dude. Like,
absolutely.
He's still a PPR machine. Kendre Miller is fighting for a roster spot. Who's the guy they signed from Green Bay last year who's just like
Jamal Williams.
Jamal Williams is
nobody
a non-factor. Like, Alvin Kamara is the truth. Like, you know, you got guys, Isaiah Pacheco. Like, you got guys who are 3rd, 4th round picks that serviceable. You know, my strategy, I'm going to talk about a strategy, 2 strategies actually, really quick, that one I hate, and this could just be me, handcuffing running backs. Don't get it. Like, I understand why people do it, but you're basically drafting a guy that you hope you won't play. That is a waste of a roster spot, right? Like, you are willingly drafting a guy who you're hoping won't get on the field because you don't want your starter to get hurt, and then let alone you're drafting a guy he's a backup for a reason. Like, I just don't get drafting a handcuff. It makes no sense to me. You can say what you want to say, but ultimately you're drafting a guy. Oh, yeah, I'm just going to hold on to him knowing he's not going to play just in case my starter gets hurt. No, get someone who actually has a ceiling, not that. But anyways, but one thing I am a big fan of is quarterback receiver stacking. Especially, you know, most of our listeners are probably redraft, but if you're in if you do underdog or DraftKings, FanDuel, you're in a big contest, right? With 10,000 other people in it, 150,000 people other in it. You're going to want to do a quarterback receiver stack. I mean, that's incredible. That's when you get a quarterback and a receiver on the same team. The advantage to that is, let's say you got a guy like Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown on your team.
Oh my gosh.
You see what I'm saying? That's
Right.
money. That is money.
Right. You get double points for every completion.
You get 4 points for the passing touchdown and then 6 points for the reception touchdown. That's 10 points just off the touchdown alone, not including the yards. You get Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. You see what I'm saying? Like, you get a good quarterback receiver stack. Anthony Richardson, Michael Pittman. You see what I'm saying? You get something like that, it's an added advantage. If I'm able to get a quarterback receiver stack, I will overdraft the receiver to an extent, or the quarterback, just because it can give me that boost. Now, sure, if the team doesn't do well that game, all right, it hurts a little bit, but I think the benefits far outweigh the costs and the risks, to be honest. That's my draft strategy.
Matt, I have a question for you. So, do you like my stacking of Russell Wilson and Pickens and Pat Fairmont?
Do you like your stack? do you like your stack? Can we just be honest?
I love it.
I plead the fifth.
Oh, and also, since you mentioned Alvin Kamara, I think we should all look out for this. There's a huge likelihood Alvin Kamara would not finish the season on the Saints roster.
What?
Why is that?
There's a huge likelihood because if they cut Alvin Kamara or they trade him or cut him, they would save a whole lot of cap without no dead space, and they're already cash strapped. And also, if they start the season off and they don't look like they'll make the playoffs and they're not doing well, he is definitely a casualty of that. He probably gets traded, then they get picks off of it, and then move on, get a running back. Next year's class is stacked. So, and he's getting older. So there's a huge likelihood he would not finish the year on the Saints roster.